Hello and welcome to Three Questions with. I'm my buddy Chris Doherty with us from Doherty Properties. Good morning, Chris. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me. How you been?
I just living the dream, my friend. So, Chris, I was going through the Boston Globe a week or so ago, and I saw an article about triple deckers, and it mentions you. And I guess traditionally people would go and buy a three decker and be able to live in one of the units for free and rent out the other two. Now that doesn't work in all communities. What happened?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, and the three deckers were really a pathway for the middle class to buy a piece of property that they could live in one, rent out the other two, and then be able to live for free while building equity. But with rising prices that are happening throughout Massachusetts, it doesn't work in all places. In Boston, prices have gotten too high that you wouldn't be able to cover the mortgage if you lived in that, let alone for free. You'd be paying thousands of dollars to live in one unit. But where we are in the Merrimack Valley of Lowell, Lawrence, and Haverhill, the numbers still work, but not like they used to. But we are seeing a real challenge with these rising prices. It used to be, Kevin, that you could live in there for free. Today's average three family in the Merrimack Valley is approximately $715,000.
Well,
So after you added up mortgage, taxes, interest, insurance, everything you need to run that, generally speaking, every deal could be a little different. Then after the payments, if you lived in that unit and you could rent out unit one for 2,200, unit two for 2,200, which would be the average rents. Unit three, you could live in and you would pay 14 to 1,500. So it's not free. It's still good. It's still a benefit because you would rent that same unit for more. But rising prices are putting a crunch on would-be three-family home buyers.
and Chris, it seems like that's just going to keep happening as more people are bidding up the price on those triple deckers because they're trying to get in the one, right?
Yeah, there's a combination. I mean, prices are climbing, but rents are climbing too. And so you might see some benefit, but definitely as interest rates hover a little higher and prices stay, it's hurting these margins. And so even the rents are not going to keep up with the interest rate and price hike combined. So I think there's going to be some challenges. It's still an opportunity for people, and there's still some inefficiencies in the market where you can get a better deal than the average price. But generally speaking, it is harder because of interest rates and price climbs to make things work financially for investors and owner occupants. It's definitely been more challenging.
So, Chris, staying on that thought, I'm seeing people now who don't own a property who are really reluctant to try to get into the market. They're like, interest rates are higher than they were. I think they're still reasonable, higher than they were, and home prices are high. They're like, maybe I should wait. Now I know no one has a crystal ball, Chris. I mean, if we did, we wouldn't be on this video. We're living on an
Yeah,
island somewhere. But
exactly.
but what do you say to someone who says that? Like, I'm just gonna wait it out, Chris.
I think you have to assess your situation and you have to figure out how long you're going to stay in some place. So the first question that I would ask you is how much are you paying in rent? Now, if you're staying home with your family and you're not paying any rent, or you have a ridiculously low rent, you're paying $1,000 a month in some crazy lease that you've had for a long time, you probably stay put to see where this market goes. But if you're paying the market rent and you're paying $2,000, $3,000 a month, and you're putting that money in every month, at the end of the year, you're losing $30,000 or $40,000. It might make sense to still buy and build the equity. The trick with this market, Kevin, usually when prices are up, rents are down. When rents are high, prices are down. We're in a market where both are up. So I think it makes sense to determine how long you're going to be somewhere and what your rent payments are. And if they're high, you're still a buyer. The best time to buy is now, always, right? Even if the market turns, overall, the trend on real estate is the prices are up. There have been pullbacks, right? There was the crash of '08. There were other crashes in the '80s that everybody talks about. But the reality is, if you look at the prices then till today, real estate prices go up. So if you're going to be in a place for a long period of time and you're paying high rent, you should be a buyer.
I like that advice because I agree with you. Just being a homeowner for 30 years, people talk about the value of their home. And I'm like, well, I plan on staying, so it really doesn't impact me at all. It's not like, oh my God, it's gone down or gone up. It's an asset to me, but I'm not living off the day-to-day price fluctuations. So that's your advice. If
Yep.
you can be there for a long time, then it probably makes sense, right?
It makes sense because over time, 20, 30 years, home values go up 3 to 5% every year. There's going to be a big change in 30 years of what the value of that home will be. The challenge is a lot of people look so short term and they get nervous, right? Oh, am I going to be next year, or 2 years, or 3 years? If you're uncertain, it probably doesn't make sense to be buying anyways right now. Listen, if you bought in 08 or 09 and you were going to live for 3 years or 4 years, it was a great decision, right? But you don't really know those fluctuations. But I think if you're paying high rent and you have an intent to be somewhere for a long while and you can stay there. So if you're going to have a change in your life, you're getting married, you're going to have kids, school districts. If you say, hey, I could stay here for a good while, then you should be a buyer. You should always be thinking about buying and owning. And then in the end, you have something that you can fall back on as an asset. Where renting, you don't.
Makes
You know,
sense. So,
that's the trick.
so Chris, what's the best way for people to reach out to if they want to learn more about buying or selling a home?
You can call the office at 978-746-0124 or email me at chris@dohertyproperties.com.
Chris, I appreciate taking a few minutes calling to the show. And as always,
Thanks, my
thanks for
friend.
being my friend.
You too. Thanks, Kevin.